And welcome to Mike Ferry TV. Nice to have you back again. Obviously, one of the questions that comes up time and time again is what percentage of the business you're doing should come from listings sold versus buyer-controlled sales, working with buyers. Obviously, one of the things we preach, you hear it week in and week out, is you should be spending your time working with listings, sellers versus buyers. Why? The biggest thing is the time. You know, there's only so many hours in a day that you can work, so many hours that you can invest, and therefore, why not get the highest return on your time? You've heard me say in the past, you know, which is more difficult, working with the buyer, working with the seller? We all like to think that working with sellers is a lot easier than working with buyers, when the truth is, working with the seller is a much more difficult transaction for any real estate agent, any place, anytime. Why? Because you have to understand the skill set involved in the two different types of transactions. So my recommendation has always been the same. 70 to 75% of your gross income annually should come from listings sold versus working with buyers. Honestly, can you sell 25, 30 buyer-controlled sales homes in a year? Yes, you can do it. Is it difficult? Yes. Take a lot of time? Enormous amounts of time. You could take and virtually list 25 to 30 properties in probably 1/5 the time you spend working with those buyers. So what we're going to look at is, okay, if you're going to work with buyers, how do we make the process a little better, maybe a little simpler, and a little bit more efficient for you? So I've written down some thoughts I want to share with you. The first thought is this. There are two very basic, very fundamental rules to follow when you work with a buyer. Here's rule number one. 100% of all buyers, no exceptions now, 100% of all buyers should be pre-qualified by a lender. Now, I know what you're going to say. Mike, I've got an all-cash buyer. Why do I need a lender? To verify where the funds are coming from. Otherwise, you could get caught in a very uncomfortable situation as you go further in the negotiation. The second, of course, is then you pre-qualify that particular buyer for the type of home they want, their motivation to buy, you know, where they're coming from. You know, how many homes have you seen so far that you like? You know, is this the only area that you're looking in? How quickly do you have to make the decision? Describe the home that you have, because I want to see what you're going to get compared to what you have today. Well, if you don't know what pre-qualifying questions to ask, just go to my website, mikeferry.com, press the scripts button, go to the area working with buyers, download all the pre-qualifying questions. So basically, we should say to ourselves, I'm not going to put them in the car under any circumstance until lenders talk to them first, and I've had a chance to talk to them in depth. Every case, every time. Now, you'll hear these great expressions like, all buyers are liars. I don't believe that. I think that most of the time, a buyer doesn't have a clear understanding of what they want. They're not working with the salesperson, they're working with the real estate agent, and the salesperson can find out the exact motivation, type of home, and make the sale. So I think what we have to look at then is strengthening our stance on working with buyers. To do that, I've written down there are 4 basic kinds of buyers that an agent should work with. Let's write them down. Let's look at them very carefully. First, obviously, past clients of yours that are motivated to buy another property and or give you a strong referral. Past clients are the best people to work with. Why? Because they know you, they have a level of trust with you, you understand them. Second, of course, is any seller that you have that is honestly priced to sell. Can the sellers you have that want to buy make a decision and pull the trigger and buy without selling the home they have? And is the home they have priced in such a manner it's going to sell quickly enough to make the transition work? Third, of course, highly qualified, highly motivated referrals from your database, past clients, centers of influence, or other Mike Ferry trained agents. We probably refer a couple of thousand transactions a month just through our company. No fees are charged by us, between different agents who are transferring their buyers or sellers around the country. And then fourth, sign calls. If you have listings, you get sign calls on a regular basis. These sign calls, of course, have to be pre-qualified. They have to be pre-qualified with a lender. They have to be pre-qualified by yourself. And it's an easy way to potentially double-end transactions. I have people ask me all the time, you know, Mike, should I be showing my own listings? And the answer is yes. Well, Mike, is it really ethically right to show my own listings? Of course it is, as long as you fully disclose to the buyer that you're the listing agent. And then there's that other thought, which you have to keep in the back of your mind. It's so much easier to deal with the other agent when you are the other agent. So let's think about this thought. It is not uncommon, and you know this because you may have done it yourself, for a buyer to buy the same kind of home several times throughout their lifetime. Now, yes, if they are downsizing from a 5-bedroom, 5-bath, 5,000 square foot to a little condo because the kids have moved out, that's a different program. But most people are going to buy pretty much the same thing time and time again. Why do people buy Chevrolets every 3 years, or Fords, or Mercedes? People generally purchase the same type of product or service repetitively through their life. A home is one of those purchases they make. The more time you can discover what type of home they have, the more time you can get them to describe it in detail, or possibly even go visit that house once and see where they live if they're close, to get an understanding of who they are and what they have. That'll help you in the process of picking out and selecting the homes they're going to buy. I really believe that with buyers, even more than with sellers, you have to have some standards in place. Standards meaning these are the requirements that I have as an agent for you and I to work together. Now, watch. Buyers, we know, notoriously look at property with multiples of agents. It's not uncommon for a buyer to look at property with 5, 10, 15 different agents. It's not uncommon for them to take 6, 8, 10, 12, 14 weeks to make a decision. It's not uncommon for a buyer to look at 20, 30, 40 homes. These are problems caused by inefficient agents. They're not the buyer's problem. These are lousy agents. We had a buyer, we had an agent in Dallas, Texas, stand up in a seminar one day when I went through this type of material. And the guy says, I think I've made a mistake, in front of the whole class. I said, what's the mistake you made? I've been working with the buyer for a year and I've showed 275 homes in a year and they haven't bought. I said, you didn't make a mistake. What you didn't realize is you're out of business, nobody told you. So if the process is taking too long, if they're not making a decision, if they're confused in the homes you show, it's not their problem. It's a problem that we've created for them. We've created the problem because we don't have any simple minimum standards we should be following with that particular buyer. So let's go through some of the standards you may want to consider. Obviously, the first one, already talked about it. They have to be pre-qualified by your lender. Mike, my buyer won't talk to the lender. Then you can't show them property. Watch, minimum standards. These are things that have to be done for me to complete the transaction. These are things that have to be done for me to put you in my car and drive you out from house to house. These are minimum standards. I can't go below these. Well, Mike, they won't talk to my lender. Then I can't show them property. End of conversation. The second minimum standard, pre-qualify by you for the type of home and motivation. Now listen, I need to find out, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, how soon do you want to move into your new home? Well, it could take 3 months, 6 months, a year. Then I can't show you property. Are you saying that we are not going to be allowed to look at property with you? Correct, because I don't want to waste my time. Now watch, guys and gals. The people that get caught in working with buyers for days and weeks and months are people that don't prospect, people that don't have listings. These are not aggressive agents. If you're taking days and weeks and months with the buyer because they won't answer your questions so you can identify the kind of home they want, you've put yourself in a position to now be 100% working for that buyer. I wrote down C, all decision makers have to be present. You can't put yourself again in a situation where you have one of the two parties. Yes, it does take, in most cases, one party to buy a house, two to sell it, if there's both people on the actual mortgage or on the deed. But listen to me, guys and gals. How do you expect to speed up the transaction if you're going out with the wife or the husband and then showing property, hoping that they can describe what they have seen to their spouse, and then going to pick up the spouse later and show them again? I'll never forget, I had a buyer years ago, and the buyer said, well, Mike, before we do anything, you have to understand that we have to show our mother the property before we buy. So I looked at him and I smiled and I said, well, let me ask you a question. Is your mom going to put down the down payment? Well, no. Is your mom going to make the monthly payments? Well, no. Is your mother helping at all in this transaction? No. Is your mother going to live with you? Well, no. Gosh, I got a great idea. Let's surprise her with the home we're going to buy. Well, they kind of laughed and we sold them a home. Number 4 is the first meeting that you have with the buyer should always be at your office. You got to get control of the transaction. I wrote down 5th, if at all possible, a buyer-broker agreement should be signed. Every contract is made to be broken, but at least it creates a little bit of a stronger relationship between you and the buyer. And then, of course, the last point is never show more than 3 homes at a time. But Mike, we wanted to see 10 or 12, 15 homes today. Fine. I'm going to show you 3. I'm going to ask you to buy one. And if you can't buy one of those 3, I'm going to ask you why. Because I'm only going to show you homes that are designed to meet your needs and help you make a decision today. Are you in a position to make a decision today? If you're going to work with buyers, which I know some of you are going to do, let's make the process better. Let's make it better for them. Let's make it better for you. Let's speed up this whole process so you can do more deals in less time and make more money in the process. Thanks for watching today. See you next week.